Welcome back to Code with Hafiz. In this video, I'll show you how to install and configure a Laratrust in a Laravel Jetstream Inertia plus Vue app for managing user roles and permissions. So if you're working on a multi-role system in Laravel, this will make your life much easier. So let's get started. So to install this package in our application, let's open a new tab in the browser and search for Laratrust in Google. So to go to their official website, we need to click on this first link. And in here let's click on this get started, and in the left sidebar let's click on this installation. So to install this package we need to run this composer command. So let's copy it and let's get back to the terminal. Make sure you're in the project directory. So let's paste our command and press enter. Now the next step is to publish the vendor files. So let's copy this php command and let's get back to the terminal. Let's paste our command and press enter. Now this being done, we need to clear the config cache as stated in the documentation. So let's copy the command and paste it here and press enter. So in the documentation, if we scroll down a little bit to the bottom, you can see for creating the role and permission model and their migrations, we need to run this Laratrust setup command. So let's copy it and paste it in our terminal and press enter. So it will prompt us for creating the migrations. So let's say yes and press enter. Now the next part is to import the Laratrust user contract and has roles and permissions trait in our user model. So let's copy these two inputs and let's get back to our VS Code. So in here let's go to app, models and user model. So let's paste it at the top like this. And next up we need to implement the Laratrust user. So let's copy this and let's paste it here. And next up we need to use this one in our user class. So let's duplicate it and paste it like this. Now next up we need to dump autoload the composer. So let's copy this command and get back to the terminal, paste it and press enter. Now this being done, we need to migrate the tables. So let's migrate a fresh migration. So let's paste it and let's say colon fresh to have all the tables created from scratch. So now we need to configure our startup or starter kit users, roles and permissions in our application. So we can use the Laratrust seeder for this to accomplish. Let's get back to the documentation and let's go to usage. And if you scroll down, you can see we have the seeder in here. So to create the seeder, we need to run this php command. So let's paste it and press enter. And next up, we need to create the vendor files or publish the vendor files. So let's copy this, paste it here and press enter. And next up, let's dump autoload the composer. So let's paste it like this. And after this, we need to import the seeder in our application seeder. So let's copy this code from here, and in here we need to go to database seeders, and you can see now we have this Laratrust seeder. So we need to import this in our database seeder to be able to run it. So let's press enter here and paste our code like this. Now the next part is to declare our starter kit users, roles and permissions. So for this, if we check out the documentation, we now need to open this config file, which is located in config/laratrust seeder.php. So if we go to our config folder, and now you can see we have Laratrust seeder.php in here. So let's open it, and in here first of all for create users, let's make it true. So whenever we run this seeder, our users will be created automatically. Now next up, let's create our role structure. So let's remove all of these roles from here, or let's leave one of them and we will customize it. So in here let's rename it to super admin, and for this one we will have permissions for dashboard, and then we will have permissions for the profile, and then we will have permissions for branches. And for this one, let's duplicate it. So this one should be for roles, and this one should be for permissions, and this one should be for users, and then we have courses like this. So for the dashboard we only want to have the read permission, so let's only leave R. And for profile, read and update is alright. And for branches we need the CRUD operations all, so let's copy this and let's paste it here like this. Now we can duplicate this role like this. So the next one will be, let's say for admin, so let's say admin, and it will have dashboard, profile and courses. And next up we will have for, let's say instructor, so instructor, and for now these permissions are alright, so let's duplicate it again, and this final one will be for student like this. And for this one we will only leave the dashboard and profile for now. Now the next part is to run this seeder, so let's get back to the terminal. Before that let's clear the config cache, so config colon cache, and let's say php artisan db colon seed. So you can see all the seeders have run successfully. So all of our starter kit users, roles and permissions are created successfully. Now we will implement or configure the code that will get roles and permissions related to the authenticated user. So for this let's get back to Visual Studio Code and let's go to the sidebar and let's minimize it. So let's go to resources, JS, and I will create a store for our auth. So let's right click, new file, and let's name it auth store.js. And here let's import the defined store from Pinya. So let's say import curly braces and define, let's say store. So this should be from Pinya like this. And after this let's import Axios, so import Axios from Axios. And next up let's export or create our store by the name of auth, so let's say export, and let's create a variable const use auth store should equal to define store, and let's name it auth, and in here let's say curly braces like this. Now next up we need some states for our auth, so let's say state, and it will take an arrow function like this, and inside here we will have an auth state. And next up we have roles state, so I will declare it an empty string of set. And for permissions we also want the same, so let's duplicate it and let's say permissions, and guys, this one should be roles like this. Now next up we need to create an action to get our authenticated user data, so let's put a comma here and let's say actions. So in here let's name it get auth and curly braces, and inside here now we will use Axios. And guys, one thing more, we need to create it inside actions, so let's paste it here, and let's also async this function like this. So in here let's say await Axios dot get, and we will call our API user slash user, and then let's say dot then, and let's async it also, so response, and let's say arrow function, and inside here let's say this dot auth should equal to response dot data dot auth. And next up for the role, let's say this dot roles should equal to new set, and let's say response dot data dot roles dot map. So we only want to get the role's name, so let's say role arrow function role dot name, and we want to do the same for the permissions. So let's say permissions in here, and instead of this role let's say permission like this, and let's catch the error also in case we have some kind of error. So let's say errors and arrow function console.log errors like this. Now next up we need to handle this endpoint, so let's go to our API routes file. So let's say api.php, and in here we already have this /user API endpoint, which already uses the middleware auth sanctum. So instead of returning the user, what I will do is I will store it in a variable by the name of auth, like this, and now we will return our response. So let's say return response curly braces or parenthesis and then arrow JSON, and in here we will return an array. So first of all we have auth, $auth, and next up we have roles. So we will get this one from the authenticated user. So let's say auth arrow roles, and then we will get all of the roles like this, or let's say get like this. Next up we will get permissions. So let's say permissions, and let's say it should equal to auth arrow roles. So our permissions are assigned to each of the roles. So we need to get all the permissions from our multiple roles. So we can pass a with function here, and we will get all permissions, and then let's say get, and now in here we can plug the permissions. So let's say plug, so we need arrow, and let's say plug, and inside here let's say permissions, and let's also say flatten. And this flatten is because we have multiple roles and each role has their own array of permissions. So finally we are merging all the arrays of permissions into one array of permissions. So we have some kind of error here, and we need to terminate this code in here like this. Now next up we need to test this functionality. So let's get back to the sidebar, and we will test it in our main component. So let's go to JS layouts, app layout. So at the bottom, let's scroll down, and first of all we need to import the use auth store. So in here let's say import use auth store, and it should be inside curly braces like this, and we need to import it from at /store/auth store like this. Next up we want to use auth store as a computed property. So in here let's press enter, and let's say computed curly braces, and let's also put a comma here, and let's name it auth curly braces, and let's return use auth store like this. Now next up we need to call the get auth action in here. So in here what we can do is, in our mounted, first of all we need to get our success token. So we can get that from window axios dot defaults and dot headers dot common. So in here we will set it to authorization. So let's say authorization, and we can get the let's also await it, and we can get the bearer token from Ziggy props. So in here let's say tilt marks, and let's say bearer, and then let's say $ curly braces. Oh, this should be curly braces, and let's say use page. So we will import it at the top, and let's say props. So this should be props dot Ziggy, and in here let's say dot token. So now we need to use this use page at the very top. So let's scroll to the top, and let's use it in our Inertia.js Vue 3. So in here let's say use page. Now let's scroll back to the bottom, and in here let's also await this locale, and let's also pass async in here. So let's say async like this. Now finally we can call the get auth function. So let's say await this dot auth as we have it as a computed property, and let's say get auth and then parenthesis. So now we are getting the data. So if I check out the console, so let's get back to the browser, and let's open our console, and let's also refresh. So let's log into the system. I will log in as super admin. So password is password by default, and you can see it logged in successfully, and now it is creating the auth store installed. So to show you how this works, let's fetch the username instead of this super admin at our drop down menu. Or instead of this, let's just echo it in here because we just want to test this functionality. So in here, let's scroll to our main tag. So I think it is in here. Yeah, this is our main slot. So in above of after the header and above of the slot or content, let's say double curly braces, and let's say auth, and then we want the name. So if I save it, get back to the browser, now you can see we have it in here. So if I refresh, it is also in here. So let's log out and check if this works. So let's log in back, super admin, and the password is password. So you can see it is working just fine. Now for the roles and permissions, let's get back to our Visual Studio Code, and for this main tag, let's declare a permission. So let's say v-f, and let's say auth dot permissions dot has. So we have this has function coming with set that we created earlier. So in here we will check, for example, let's say profile read, and if I save it and let's get back to the browser, you can see it is still in here. So if I refresh, it is still in here. So if we change the permission to something else, so let's say something else, and we know that we don't have this permission, so if I get back to the browser, now you can see we have nothing in here. So let's change it back like this. And that's it. You've successfully installed and configured Laratrust in a Laravel Jetstream Inertia plus Vue app. Now you can easily manage roles and permissions for your users. If this tutorial was helpful, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and leave a comment if you have any questions. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.